I'm nothing special, okay? I am just an example of many Kurdish people who have become a refugee and who come back with an interesting story. When I was 9 years old, my family became a refugee, like most of the people in the Kurdistan region. We went to Iran. For the first time, I was, exposed to a different culture. Well, they said it was a different culture, but I didn't really understand what that meant because they looked the same, they just sounded different. They spoke a different language. We came back to Kurdistan, things were better. This was in 1991. Again, I was 9. Don't do the calculation, I was born in 1982. And then we became refugees again. This time to Jordan. It just felt like another vacation. Being a refugee was the story of life of every Kurdish person. In Jordan, I did my best to learn Arabic, the language that I was afraid of before, because I heard bad things about Arabs. They used to kill us. That's what they said. They used to take things away from us. That's what I believed. So this time we ended up in Canada. It was a very, very long journey, 11, 12, or maybe 15 hours, I can't even remember. For a child like me, it was a very long journey. We arrived in Canada for the first time, and I felt like I was a human. I don't know why, because I was still the same person. When we arrived at the airport, at the Toronto International Airport, it looked amazing. People were different. People were different. I was trying to see how many colors of people I saw. At one point, I just gave up because it's not only white and black. We have brown, we have beige, we have blue, and then the hair colors came in. That I got even more confused. People have different colors. And then I said, okay, I need to calm down because I think I am just one of them. So the police officer walked to my family, and I thought, oh, I am Kurdish, that means I need to be arrested again. Even though I was never arrested, but I heard a lot of stories about Kurdish people being arrested, being killed, being tortured, and things like that. My father gave the documents to the police officer, the immigration officer, that's what they call them there, because we were relocated to Canada through the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. And so when the police officer came to us, said, "Can I see your passports, please?" My father presented the passports, and he looked at me and my 2 brothers and my sister. I was the oldest. And he does this to me, and he's like, "Welcome, little Canadian." And I thought I was being mistaken for somebody else. I looked at my dad. I said, "Dad, I think you called me Canadian. I think we're here by mistake." My dad said, "No. This is the country where people are the same. They're equal." And so this is when I started to really try to understand what multiculturalism meant, what bilingualism meant, what all these different things meant to me. Everything was a new terminology. So when I was new in Canada, just like every other family in the Middle East, they all want their sons and daughters to be doctors. Right? How disappointed were your parents when they realized that you were not accepted into the College of Medicine? Anybody? Oh yeah? There's one honest person. Oh yeah, I see more hands now because I talked about honesty. Good. Well, I studied for 1.5 years dentistry. And everybody was already calling me a doctor. And I said, "Please don't call me a doctor. I don't know if I'm going to pass. What if I fail and then I become something else?" I took 1.5 years of dentistry, bragging about I was going to be a doctor, things like that. And then I decided to come back here to Kurdistan and do something different. I didn't know what I was going to do because I was not really a full dentist. The only thing that I had with me was the English language. So I said, okay, at least I can do something. I can teach English to people. So I started teaching English, and then I got into journalism because every Kurdish person cares about human rights, politics, and blah blah blah. So I went back to Canada and I went to the advisor of my university and I said, listen, I am now considered a sciences student. Can you please add political in front of it? And she said, well, that's political sciences. There is no relationship between sciences and political sciences. I said, of course there's a relationship. Science is in both of them. Anyway, I went to political science. I decided to continue. I loved political science. My marks went up immediately because I was finally doing something that I was enjoying. I finished my bachelor's degree. And then I was still struggling about this whole idea of multiculturalism. People living together from different cultures, from different nations, different languages, at the same time holding one passport that says Canada. And when I became a Canadian citizen, I wasn't sure if, I was really Canadian or not, because in Canada, the ideology, the mentality is that the more mixed your grandparents are, the more Canadian you are. So I thought to myself, okay, I am definitely not Canadian because all 4 grandparents are Kurdish. So I decided to wonder, I started asking my parents, what are my grandparents? To see if they were different somehow, so that I could be more Canadian. Because my friends, every time I asked a friend in the university, I said, where are you from? And they're like, well, what do you mean? I say, where are you, what are your background, what's your background? And they would say, well, I am 20% Irish, 50% English, 30% this. I didn't even know how you can calculate percentages of your grandparents. Do you cut them? What do you do? So people ask me, what are you? I said, well, I am 50% Iraqi, 50% Kurdish. Because, that's interesting. I want to be different. I want to be like a person by percentages, I don't want to be 100% something because that's boring, right? Anyway, so I went to the passport office for the first time to get a Canadian passport, and I see, 10 windows, 10 different people giving passports to people. One of them was wearing a scarf, one of them was white, one of them was black, one of them, I don't know what color, one of them was Asian, one of them was something else, and I didn't know which window I had to go to because I wasn't sure I wasn't sure what country's passport I was going to get. It was called the Canadian Passport Office, but everybody looked different, so I said, Dad, do they all give the Canadian passport or are they different passports? What is this? My dad said, calm down. These are all Canadian people, just like you. You're Canadian today, so you're going to get a Canadian passport from one of these people. These are all Canadians, okay? So I was still getting used to the idea of being Canadian and being multicultural and things like that. And then I started to question myself, well, in Iraq, we don't even have half of the societies and the ethnic groups that we have in Canada. Why do we hate each other so much? Well, it goes back to the history. Okay, our history was bloody. Everybody killed everybody. It was like a butcher shop, But Canada doesn't have a very, we also have a very embarrassing history if you go back, because the English and the French people were also killing each other. So when I realized that the English and the French were killing each other the way that the Kurds and Arabs are killing each other now, I said, okay, there's hope. And then I started calculating how many years did Canadians take to become peaceful. Let me see if I can do this calculation for Iraq. Okay, by the time they will accept each other, I will be dead. So I didn't know what is going to happen to Iraq. Anyway, so I came back here again and I started to teach politics this time because I had a degree in politics. I started to talk about Canadian multiculturalism. I started talking about diversity, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, everybody's equal, everybody's supposed to be like this and that. And then I realized, I still need to learn more because with a bachelor's degree, you can't really teach the academia because academia is where change really happens, I thought to myself, because okay, the people who are teachers of elementary school and high school, these teachers, I have no chance to teach them, but I can at least teach the people in university. So I decided to go back again. This time I decided to become more Canadian. And what is that? By learning the second official language of Canada, which was French. So I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I need to go to somewhere where I can speak French. And he said, okay, go to Montreal, they speak French. I said, yes, but I don't speak French. So when I go there, every time I try to speak French, they switch back to English because my French is so bad. And we decided, my dad and I, we agreed that I was going to go to France to learn French and to do my master's. So I went to Paris. Wow. The sexy city of Europe, right? Everybody loves the French language. I said, oh my God, I'm going to become an even better person. Maybe I can bring this time English and French back to Kurdistan, because this is the least I could do. This is the least I could do, at least teach a language while I'm working on obtaining my degree. And then I started thinking to myself, okay, I thought, I think I've come a very good way. I've come a long way, because when I first went to Canada, my first job was a dishwasher. And my biggest challenge was, how clean was my dish? And now I'm studying my master's in France. I finished my master's. I was going to two universities at the same time, doing a double degree. So in the morning, I was studying in English. In the afternoon, I was studying in French. Two different universities. So I was almost going crazy between these two languages, different assignments, different systems of education and things like that. So I came back here again, and this time I started teaching English and sometimes French when the teacher was not available or whatever. And I thought, this is a very good accomplishment. I wish we could appreciate our multiculturalism and our biculturalism in this country. In a rich country like Iraq, we have so many people and we could be used for so many different purposes, yet we focus on the negative things, okay? Yes, we have basically a very bad history of, living together, but my biggest challenge now, I decided to go back again to university, and this time I started my PhD at the University of Ottawa in Canada. And my thesis is going to focus on the question of identity, on the question of tolerance, forgiveness, and how we can finally live together. And this has been my mission in life, to see how a rich country like Iraq could overcome all these barriers and to see the differences and to celebrate these differences instead of just targeting the negative points, because this is, in my opinion, one of the best countries in the world. All we need to do is invest in it with the right talent, with the right people, and not losing our energy in the negative things, but in the positive things. Thank you.